I'm Denise. If you know me, you know that I love talking about science. I love getting people engaged with science. And if you can't tell, I love cats, right? And so today we're going to talk a little bit about cats and communication. And why am I talking about communication when we're talking about science, right? Well, if there is a lot of distrust in science, the trust in science has plummeted uh, in the past 10 years, and we need to be able to talk about it. You know, as scientists, if we don't talk about our science and if we don't make those connections, it doesn't have the impact, and we have a very positive impact on the world. And we need to make sure that people know that. So what defines successful communication? Ideas, thoughts, knowledge, data, or opinions are shared, and those items are understood. Both sender and receiver feel satisfied. Keep in mind the 5 cats of communication. It needs to be clear, it needs to be complete, it needs to be correct, it needs to be concise, and it needs to be compassionate. So keep these in mind, these are usually called the 5 C's, but come on. And, cats, they're pretty awesome. What do they have to do with communication? I'm actually gonna, hey, come on, you're a kitty, right? I'm gonna tell you a story about why. I was getting ready for a presentation several years ago, talking to my colleagues. I pretty much gave them my talk, and I was like, my God, y'all are gonna be bored now. Now, these people knew me during COVID. I mostly work with them remotely. They met my cats. And one of them jokingly said, "Ha, don't give your talk, just show pictures of your cats." And I was like, challenge accepted, right? And then I really began thinking, my cats have taught me a lot about communication, right? And so, let's talk about trust. It's almost impossible to have successful communication without trust, right? Cats generally do not trust you immediately, right? They don't trust outsiders. Outsiders are scary. They may even cause fights. They're not safe. So you've got to take the time to navigate this when you're when you're trying to build a relationship with a cat. You can't rush this trust building. They're going to hide. Each cat is going to need something a little bit different to lure them out. Some will trust quickly, others take a long time. Even with trust, there can be disagreements, right? The reward is worth it though, right? Look at that cat belly, right? And, you might even be able to start pushing comfort zones once you have that trust. You might be able to take them scary places. Another way to build trust? Common interests, right? Treats, naps, bird watching, right? So that common ground is really important. But do not bullshit. Don't bullshit. They know. They know when you're bullshitting. They know when you have that pill hid in that treat, right? And bullshit breaks trust. Meet them where they're at. Have you ever tried to cuddle a cat when they don't want to be cuddled? Right? That doesn't usually work very well. So, understand, meet them where they're at. Look for where you may not expect your cats, right? They're not always going to be where you want them to be or where you expect them to be. And so keep an eye out for those unexpected places that your cats are going to show up. Nonverbal communication. My cats tell me when they're hungry or when they want to go to bed. This one really wants me to go to bed right now, right? She will actually grab you and drag you to bed. Those nonverbal cues are just as important. And and sometimes when things aren't going well, they're actually going to show you that through nonverbal cues, right? And so you've got to pay attention to those because if you don't, that loses that trust, right? But what a reward you get. you get those cuddles, those snuggles, that better appreciation of that trust leads to better science communication, better understanding. And I really wouldn't have been able to be here without the stars of the show, my 3 current cats, Morgan, Angus, and Bridget. And so thank you so much for allowing me to talk about my cats and share my passion of better communication.